God says, something is coming. Prepare your heart, God's message for you today. There are moments in your life when the inner world becomes strangely sensitive, as if something unseen is approaching long before it ever takes form in your external reality. You cannot point to it. You cannot prove it. But you feel it in the way your thoughts slow down for a second longer than usual, in the way your attention drifts toward questions you were not planning to ask, in the way silence suddenly feels more meaningful than noise. And in those moments, it is as if life itself is leaning closer to you, not to frighten you, not to overwhelm you, but to awaken something that has been quietly waiting beneath the surface of your awareness. You may call it intuition, you may call it reflection, you may even dismiss it as imagination. But what you cannot deny is that there are times when your inner world begins to reorganize itself before your outer world shows any visible change. Something shifts first in how you perceive. Then, slowly, everything else follows. And this is where you are now, not at the end of something, but at the edge of something becoming. There is a deeper rhythm moving through your life that does not follow your expectations. It does not ask for permission. It does not announce itself with certainty. It reveals itself through subtle displacement, through the feeling that what once felt stable is beginning to feel temporary, and what once felt distant is beginning to feel closer than before. And in that displacement, you begin to sense a question forming within you, not spoken aloud, not fully shaped, but present nonetheless. What is changing in me that I cannot yet fully see? And the truth is, not everything that is coming into your life will arrive in the form you expect. Some things will arrive as loss. Some will arrive as clarity. Some will arrive as endings that do not immediately make sense. And some will arrive as opportunities that feel unfamiliar, simply because you are no longer the version of yourself that would have encountered them in the same way before. But before anything changes externally, something always changes internally first. And that internal change is what prepares you. Not in the way preparation is usually understood, as planning or control, but in a deeper sense where perception itself becomes capable of holding more truth than it could before. There is a reason certain chapters of your life feel heavier before they shift. It is not because life is becoming more difficult for no reason. It is because something within you is being asked to release its grip on interpretations that no longer serve your next stage of becoming. And releasing old interpretations always feels like uncertainty at first, because interpretation is what gives meaning to experience. And when meaning begins to loosen, the mind reacts as if something is being lost. But what is actually happening is not loss. It is expansion. And expansion always feels unfamiliar before it feels natural. There are parts of your life that you have already outgrown without fully realizing it. Patterns you continue out of habit rather than alignment. Emotional responses that appear automatically, even though something deeper in you has already begun to question them. Attachments that remain not because they are still nourishing you, but because they are still familiar. And familiarity can be deceptive. It can make what is stagnant feel like stability. It can make what is repeating feel like progress. It can make what is ending feel like something you must hold on to in order to remain safe. But something deeper within you is no longer fully convinced by those illusions. And that is why certain experiences now feel different than they used to. You notice more quickly when something drains you. You sense more clearly when something does not align. You feel a subtle resistance toward environments, conversations, or commitments that once felt normal but now feel slightly misaligned with who you are becoming. This is not confusion. It is refinement. And refinement is one of the quietest forms of transformation. It does not destroy everything at once. It reveals what no longer fits by simply allowing you to see more clearly. And in that clarity, choices begin to shift naturally. You do not always need to force change when awareness has already begun to change your perception, because perception is the root of direction, and direction determines everything that follows. There is something important you must understand in this moment. What is coming into your life is not random, but neither is it fully predictable. It is responsive. It is shaped by a combination of timing, readiness, and internal alignment that you may not yet fully comprehend, but which is already in motion. And readiness is not about being perfect. It is about being open enough to no longer resist what is already trying to become clear within you. There are experiences that cannot enter your life until you are no longer anchored to the version of yourself that would misinterpret them. And so life, in its deeper intelligence, does not simply give you what you ask for immediately. It prepares you to become the kind of person who can recognize what arrives when it arrives. This preparation is often misunderstood, because it does not always feel like progress. Sometimes it feels like waiting. Sometimes it feels like confusion. Sometimes it feels like nothing is happening at all. But beneath that surface experience, something far more significant is unfolding. Your internal structure is reorganizing. Your emotional responses are becoming more selective. Your awareness is becoming less reactive and more observant. And your perception is slowly learning how to distinguish between what is temporary and what is essential. And this distinction is what allows you to move forward without losing yourself in the process. There is a moment in every person's life where they begin to realize that not every feeling demands immediate action. Not every thought represents truth, and not every fear represents reality. That moment changes everything, because it creates space between stimulus and response. And in that space, something powerful emerges. Choice. Not forced choice. Not reactive choice, but conscious participation in your own becoming. And once that space opens, you begin to experience life differently. You begin to notice that you are not just being carried by circumstances, but also participating in how those circumstances are interpreted and integrated. And this realization, even if subtle, is one of the most profound shifts a human being can experience, because it returns power to awareness itself. Not control over everything, but clarity within everything. And clarity is what allows you to remain steady, even when external conditions are uncertain. There is something coming into your life that will require that steadiness. Not necessarily as a dramatic event, but as a deeper alignment between who you are internally and what you are willing to engage with externally. And if you are not prepared in awareness, you may interpret that arrival incorrectly. You may see endings where there are transitions. You may see delays where there is restructuring. You may see loss where there is redirection. But if you remain present enough to observe, rather than immediately conclude, you will begin to see a different pattern emerge. A pattern that reveals continuity rather than fragmentation. And continuity is what allows you to trust your life even when you do not fully understand it. There is a deeper intelligence in your experience that does not operate according to instant gratification. It operates according to coherence. And coherence often requires that certain things fall away before others can enter. Not as punishment, but as alignment. And alignment is not always comfortable at the moment it occurs, because it challenges the assumption that everything familiar must be preserved. But preservation is not the highest form of stability. Alignment is. And alignment is what creates lasting peace, not temporary comfort. As you move forward, you may begin to notice subtle signs that something is shifting around you. Plans may change unexpectedly. Certain relationships may begin to feel different in tone or distance. Certain opportunities may appear and then pause. Certain internal desires may lose intensity without clear reason. And rather than interpreting these shifts as instability, you are being invited to see them as adjustments in direction. Not everything that pauses is stopping. Not everything that slows is declining. Not everything that changes form is leaving your life permanently. Some things are simply being rearranged so that you can meet them differently than before. And in that rearrangement, your role is not to control every movement, but to remain aware enough not to misinterpret it. Because misinterpretation creates unnecessary suffering, and awareness reduces it. Not by eliminating change, but by allowing you to see change more clearly. There is a version of you that already knows how to move through what is coming. Not because you have experienced it before in exact form, but because something within you is already capable of adapting to it with more depth than you have previously allowed yourself to recognize. That version of you is not far away. It is forming through every moment you choose presence over reaction. Through every moment you choose observation over assumption. Through every moment you choose honesty over avoidance. And slowly, that version becomes more stable within you. Not as a sudden transformation, but as a gradual return. And what is returning is not someone new. It is someone more aligned with what has always been trying to emerge within you. And so as you continue forward, there is no need to rush toward understanding everything at once, because understanding is already unfolding in layers. What matters now is not speed. It is openness. Openness to notice what you previously overlooked. Openness to feel what you previously avoided. Openness to see what you previously interpreted too quickly. And in that openness, something begins to soften. Fear loses some of its dominance. Confusion loses some of its weight. Uncertainty becomes less threatening and more neutral. And in that neutrality, clarity has room to appear. Not as a sudden revelation, but as a quiet recognition that things are not as disconnected as they once seemed. And in that recognition, something within you steadies. Not because everything is known, but because everything is no longer assumed to be random. There is meaning forming in your experience. Not always visible immediately, but present nonetheless. And the more you remain aware, the more that meaning begins to reveal itself in ways that feel less like surprise and more like understanding, unfolding at the right pace. And so, you are being prepared, not for collapse, not for chaos, but for clarity that requires a more stable version of you to fully hold it. And that stability is already being built through everything you are currently experiencing. Even now, even here, even in what you do not yet fully understand. Something is coming. But more importantly, something is forming within you that will allow you to meet it without losing yourself in the process. And that is what preparation truly means. Not control, not prediction, but readiness of awareness. And in that readiness, nothing that comes will ever be wasted. Because you will finally be able to see it for what it truly is, not as disruption, but as part of your becoming. And in that recognition, everything begins to change quietly, from within, and it never fully returns to what it was before.